This is Frameform.
Hey everyone, Claire here. During the upside down times of the last 2 years, Screendance artists were living, meeting, watching, and practicing online. If you are in the Screendance online sphere, you probably noticed the impeccably curated and presented Duet with Camera. Duet with Camera is an initiative dedicated towards sustaining the growing area of interdisciplinary practice, experimentation, and collaboration in dance and cinema, with a focus in cultivating a pioneering space for screen dance learning, teaching, creating, and researching in India. The instigator of Duet with Camera, Sumedha Bhattacharya, is an accomplished artist whose own online space is a treasure trove of reflections and analysis of screen dance from both micro and macro lenses. I encourage you, either before or after you listen to this, to spend a few hours diving into her work and her reflections on it. I was so thrilled to speak with Sumedha and came away from this conversation bursting with ideas and inspiration. I hope you do too. Sumedha Bhattacharya, thank you so much for joining us on Frameform today.
Thank you so much, Claire, for inviting me here. And yeah, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that there is this chance to speak about things that I really love and am passionate about with people who are passionate about. So great.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm so thrilled to speak to you as well. Funnily enough, I actually want to start with the logo of your website. It's a very circular kind of logo that almost has a circle expanding both outwards and inwards. And I don't think that there's a better representation for your work than that. So many artists I see, there's so few who really interrogate their role in the form as deeply as you do, yet expand it so much as you do too through the online community. But I actually want to start at the very, very beginning, and I'm very interested to know, like, what was your first encounter with dance on film?
My first encounter with dance on film, if you ask me like the earliest memory of like as a child, then I could say like just walking into a single plex theater, right, like where you have just one movie running for different show times. And it was called Lakshmi Mandir in the place that I used to stay in Jaipur. And I remember like just going walking with my parents and watching the show of one particular superstar of Bollywood, and it was Amir Khan, who's the uh, superstar. Just that there was a dance sequence, and that was like when you see dance on film, more of like that kind of a with a spectacle view. Oh, that was amazing to just see. The film's name was, if I remember correctly, Raja Hindustani, and there was a song which there was a folk element. It was a dance on desert. That was like my earliest memory, if you could. But like my encounter with the kind of dance on film that we're doing right now in this sort of contemporary context, I think it was during my master's program. Actually, I was pursuing my master's in dance knowledge, practice and heritage. That's what it was called, this Erasmus Mundus program. And in the last semester, we were in University of Roehampton in London. There was Professor Heike Salzar back then who was teaching us, and I was auditing that course. The course was called Mediated Choreography, and that's where screen dance was introduced. Actually, of course, that course just definitely blew my mind, because it was the beginning of something, just like a movement. It started like within you, and then there was this urge,
Yeah, it's fantastic that you learned from Heike Salzer as well. I really appreciate how they incorporate live performances, and not only that, mediated live performance work as a part of a screening.
Yeah, I mean, it's just was before that there was this idea of dance and this concept of dance, that we know how we know dance, right? Like we know dance
Mm-hmm.
because it is the way it is, and through series of knowings of what dance can be. But this kind of knowing, where dance is via seen through a very different lens of film. Maybe it was always there, but just the way in which the invitation was of seeing it through a very different lens. It's almost like you're also reimagining the dance that we know what dance is. Like, it's not just rhythmic movement of the body in space, but it's more than that. And that's more than thing happened, I guess, in this introduction to dance on screen.
Yeah, I remember when I first started as well, just seeing like how many different ways can choreography manifest through literally every single stage of creation of the process, and how do we really conceptualize the screen in screen dance as well. This is something that's I'm always very interested in looking at your work and seeing how the camera and how this notion of the camera lens and the screen and sort of the space in between manifests. Specifically, when it comes to, I was watching the performance. I believe it is actually the duet with camera where you're doing the katak performance that has like a camera almost in the corner, but we don't see, or at least through the video, I didn't see what the camera was actually looking at. There's sort of almost like the being of the camera. I'm actually very interested. What kind of questions do you have at the moment regarding the relationship of the body and camera, and how have those questions evolved since you first became exposed to screen dance?
I think before I answer that question, I just have to thank you for sharing that insight about the logo that you mentioned, because it's like very few people, like even like I think I've actually seen that, like you've seen, literally seen the logo in a way. So it was very, like, intuitive, but it sort of came across, and I'm really thankful that you mentioned about the logo in the initial conversation itself. And it is actually what it is. It was about this, there is this lens, but you have this movement around this lens, with a very unformed line, or whatever you call it, a circle. Like, it's not a circle, but it's still a circle, but it's almost like formless kind of a space. So yeah, just wanted to share that. And now moving on to the question that you asked, what are the questions that I have with the performance? So let me just build the context with the performance itself, because you mentioned this, and it means a lot that you were able to spend time to look at it. It's a very short excerpt of the larger performance, where actually I was looking at this conversation between just between this aspect of gaze, and how a dancer has this gaze on her, and how she corrects, how she gradually corrects movements again and again, and that's like a repetition almost, to form a perfect, or whatever, perfect, or a choreography which has been built with all these corrections slash improvements slash amendments. So that is what that performance actually was, just to repeat one sequence of a Kathak composition and start to do again and again. But what happens when the dancer tries to lose herself and finds that sort of liberation, and then again coming back, and it's almost like this negotiation that I wanted to work with. That's all. And it was this beginning. Like, of course, that was just the beginning, because I had just a 7 or a 10 minute slot to perform, and I've never thought about the camera being on stage ever. So camera almost became a representation of a god character, because in Kathak we have a lot of mythological characters, that we pray, or like that we sort of represent or invoke during the performance in the storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, this is a camera. And of course, in my thought process, there was this aspect of, oh, anyhow, I'm, invoking someone I can't see. And here you are. What would be that confrontation of, if it's almost like those dystopian things, like, oh, what would happen if the camera was the character of the god itself, and that changed the choreography, right? So it's almost like you're praying, you're submissive to it, but also you're like getting away from it in a way. So yeah, that's how that performance was built. And the questions have been always there, like from since then, who is seeing, who is being seen. There's just a relationship between the dancer and the camera person. Like right now, also remains the same. The questions, which are also actually PhD questions as well, that there's definitely happened something between you might have seen dance films which in its output you see almost like it might not be such a collaborative process. Like you see that there is this something is missing, or there's a intimacy, that seems to be missing. And
Yeah, like everyone's staying in their lane but calling it like a collaboration in a way.
exactly, right, like it's almost like dance and film and then integration but not transformation. Exactly.
Mhm.
Right. So I think I'm very curious in what happens when actually, when the camera presses record, what happens before, the processes that this dancer and the camera person can go through, conversation, intimate conversations, and what changes. And I've experienced that with cinematographer I worked with, that we just shared very vulnerable memories of our childhood, of our mothers, for example, of our grandmothers, and that just changed the way in which we approach the choreography. It was almost very intuitive. We were almost like breathing together. It never happened in the first place because we just entered the studio, and I remember we just like choreography, camera on, press record, done.
And I think that there's this sort of breaking of some of these hierarchies that sometimes get ingrained in the process of, well, creating film work in general, where really the camera person, or I guess the person directing the camera, is really held at a high regard, and everything almost is in service to that. And there was sort of a paradoxical reaction I had when watching Duet with camera as well, and that we do have the camera figure, but we also have a really lovely multicam capture of that's really approaching it with a different intention as well. And in a product oriented society, sometimes like the job is just to like press the camera and go, but like when you have that opportunity to be vulnerable and really have that authentic dialogue, that's when
Authentic dialogue, the dialogue, exactly. It's not like, it's just I'm speaking to you something and you're responding to it, but it's almost like if there is a listening, there is some sort of just not responding for response sake, it's listening, just the absorption happens and something changes in that collaboration. And I think these are my, if yeah, these are the questions. What can make, how can we find, I mean, not only just research wise, where there have been historically so many dance films in India. Like dance in films is so, like, it's so visually loaded culture, right, since the
oh yeah.
start. And But very few research actually exists. Not very few. I mean, I'm even still looking, but just the aspect of what, that thing of, oh, what did the cinematographer briefed the dancer before, or the choreographer. There's no such, there's nothing, and it's sort of ephemeral. Maybe it is meant to be, but with that aspect of classical dance forms, most often the kind of form that I'm also in is a classical Indian classical dance form. The looking is very static. Like it's almost like you need to have a full body documentation, like that kind of, to break out of that also, how do we begin to unpack those processes that can be between the cinematographer, camera person, camera director, and the dancer. Like if there was like this very super cool model of sorts, of a designs of sorts, and then you could play with it, you could subvert it, you could challenge it, you could throw it away, but it would be so lovely to have that, right? And that's where
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, as a performance, I do performance documentation for a living essentially. And like my favorite directive is, I'm not interested in documentation. Like just really just be, dance with the movement. It's almost something even, I'm getting really in the weeds here with the documentation, but seeing, even like a half body frame in the chakar during your dance. Like, I actually filmed quite a bit of Kathak myself, and yeah, you never ever do less than full body. You really stay, full body. And same with ballet too. Like always full body, preserving that body on camera. But something I'm really interested in, you have this beautiful article about the notion of a vulnerable camera and really having the body memory informing the movement and informing your responses. And I'm very interested in how often do you find yourself on performing actually with the camera itself?
Context really matters because Kathak has always been a very visible form, or any kind of dance form is, I think, it so works with visibility a lot, like too much visibility, right? And there are these, and I think it's more of like more through time, my artistic practice has evolved through just negotiating this inner aspect of wanting to be visible and also going away from that visibility. So which is exactly what camera is also doing, but again, what you visibilize and what you invisibilize, on the camera screen. Um, cam- I think it was always that aspect, this introverted side of me that was, that could be just like, okay, I don't want to be in the visible frame at all. I want to be in a space where I am able to hold and the power of holding the camera and express what I want to express, so there was a sort of a there was always this shift of, I think there is this longing for a liberation or a freedom from the kind of um, practice that you have been trained in. So camera became that, a gesture for that longing for me. And it has always been, not just because during the like I wasn't introduced dance on like with the camera. I've been always photographing much before. Looking at my father, for example, he was the one who had a camera. He was the one who was documenting the family, and I think camera was always a very important part of my childhood, and just shooting and going for photo walks and stuff. But never did I want to actively pursue it until when I really felt that need for finding a source of freedom to express myself. Right now, I'm very much behind the camera, or even just want to direct the camera movement with the dancer, and try to do that more than being the subject myself. But again, I'm working on something right now this this month, which where I'll be both, and that will be challenging because I've not done that. So yeah, that's going to be challenging. I mean, because it's there is this direction, yes, but also the subject is also me. So it is a creative challenge to play with. Let's see. Yeah.
So the subject is you. Is someone else actually operating the camera, or?
Yes,
Okay.
somebody else is operating the camera. Yeah, but the direction and this entire thing of who will, how you would shoot it, and that choreographic exercises that you want to go through with the camera person would need to be like, I feel like I would need to work with him or her. I'm not even sure who this camera person is going to be right now. So but yeah, it's just almost the directorial eye is both now, behind the camera, but also the movement design, for example. Yeah.
I salute anyone who wants to direct and perform in their in their own film. I'm just like, one or the other. I'm probably going to be behind the camera here, but something I really appreciate, and something that I see is at least as a theme in descriptions of your work. The word I see come up quite often is the word care, and you actually mention in on your page that you are actually a primary caregiver yourself, and also in an artistic statement you envision the viewership of the camera as like an artistic process for caring and contemplation. How exactly does that manifest with your process, and what are the different ways that you conceptualize care?
From an embodied position of a caregiver, you tend to work a lot with or learn to work over the time with different kinds of abilities, and slowness and acceptance. That has definitely informed the way in which even the aspect of trying to collaborate with cinematographer with a sense of collaboration, at least, or with that sensitivity of collaboration, is that step towards, oh, I care what, how you will record me, how we will have this conversation. I don't want it to be just this moment of having a collaboration and we moving on in our lives. But there is this before and after life of things that matter for me, and I care about it. So um, that's where the entry point is coming in. So I think caring becomes sort of like a value that guides, in a way, the process of collaboration, and hence that acceptance that it is not about filming, getting a product, getting it done, and it's done. So it's just being open to that aspect of the slowness part of things, it might not work. As a caregiver, I have learned to be able to, you could say, be sensitive to the kind of abilities that you see and the disabilities that you see. I might be disabled in different ways in which I do not understand the world of camera and filmmaking. And similarly, the cinematographer might also be just seeing the world of dance in a certain way and disabled in a way to not see the dance in certain other ways, which is
Mm-hmm.
unknown to him or her. That is where this entry point. So there definitely is a flux, right, of
Mm-hmm.
being able to and not being able to, not familiar and the unfamiliar. As a caregiver, this has become so important to embrace that and start with that point where are the things which are familiar to us, which are unfamiliar to us,
Mm-hmm.
which can then further guide the process of collaboration, and which is not to do with, oh, we have to get something done and a
Mm-hmm.
film done because we need to, the outward, outer worldly things, that we need to figure out a way to reach out the festivals or just reach out, send it out to, like, it's almost like a product. But
Yeah.
how do we treat that more as a process, in a way? So it's okay to take 3 years down the line, 2 years down the line, but that process stays, I feel.
So I actually wanted to talk about another type of care, and actually, this I believe curation. The word curation actually comes from a Latin root for caring, and actually does mean caring for the work in a way. And you also have an initiative, Duet with Camera, which not only connects people from all around the world, but also presents the Body and Lens Festival. Can you describe how that started and how it's expanded since?
Wow, that's such a beautiful way to share, about caring and curation and that building that connection. Because it's almost like when you feel like, oh, I had missed this thing out, I definitely um, will actually now reflect upon it much more. This idea of caring through curation. So yes, Duet with Camera began again, with that aspect of the performance. Yes, there was this performance, there was a practice, my own individual creative practice, but also the idea of building a community of practice where there are more people who can sustain dance as a shared creative practice, and during the pandemic it began as a fellowship, as a part of a art based, practice based fellowship that I had gotten, and I was sort of developing it as a part of that fellowship by Kolkata Center for Creativity. And
Mhm.
it was a 1 year fellowship during the pandemic. We were all stuck in an isolation, and all we could do is start conversing with people. And that's how it began. It's literally began with that intention of just letting it go, let it happen. I don't know what will happen. I'll create an Instagram page.
Mm-hmm.
But right before that, there was this aspect of me teaching dance film in a university higher education setting, right?
Right.
And I was teaching. It was a 6 month, like a one semester thing. The reason I wanted to share this is because that's where it began, where we had physical classes till 3 months, and then whoop, lockdown. But you know the screen, as you said in the beginning of this podcast, is what screen and how do we conceptualize screen? That this Instagram screen, the mobile screen, became a space for sharing your processes of working with the camera. So yes, we got into lockdown, but I just created this page for the students to just share their processes of working with their family members, because they are the only collaborators that time that they could reach out to, who would become a part of this Animal Kingdom project by Numeri Dance TV and Kram Khan Company, the global participatory project. So that's they were part of that, and they were working with, like, people who they would never work with, like parents and helpers and their own animals. So it was also the Instagram space became a visual archiving of sorts, of their processes, of their knowledges that they were sharing. And with that prompt in my mind, I was then came this fellowship aspect of things, and I thought, okay, let us develop this aspect of continuing this journey through more of visual archiving of multiple people in India who already are working with dance and camera. I knew just one person who was working, and that time I was just like reached out to her saying that, very extensively working only in dance and camera and the somatic camera. So I was like, Gia, that's her name, Gia Singh Arora from Bombay. And she was like, let's have a chat. Let's see where it takes us. And I just started that, through a conversation only. Each people that she knew, and I started to converse. And there were these aspects of slow processes of virtual residencies that began, where it was called this Camera and I, and a person comes in. It could be a filmmaker, cinematographer, a dancer, a mover, a movement artist. They come, they have 5 days, 7 days, whatever, they just share their processes. They share what inspired them into dance and film. They share working with the camera, how they've been working, what are the kinds of resources that we're looking at. So it almost becomes like a sort of a mapping of multiple knowledge systems coming together, and that was because it was initially very important to locate that, because nobody knows who is working where, and it's almost like it just exists, and I was also longing for a community. So slowly that community practice, when it sort of we started building upon a community, then began the process of bringing this Body and Lens Festival, which, I mean, I think for me it's more of like we collaborated as a co-curator, very open to curating more of festivals, which is something that I've been doing anyway. So Body and Lens was just like a beginning to start locating people in India and abroad, and how we can bring them together on one platform, because screen was the only way to do that. And therefore we already were creating a community of practice in India, where people are making films uh, on dance, around dance, and how can we bring them back into this festival screening. So they were also the people whom I worked with in the virtual residency. They ended up also sharing their work for this festival screening. And there was a seminar and symposium of sorts, where we were able to say, what is this screen dance thing, where do we begin from, and how do we actually start locating. I mean, do we actually need the word screen dance? Do we actually need pedagogy of screen dance? Because that was the idea of the Body and Lens Festival, to start a way to sharing knowledge around this field. And how do we do that?
I mean, I was actually able to tune into one of the Zoom discussions during that festival time as well. And I really appreciated just very intentionally curated it was as well. And again, the community building activities, they were incredibly visible during the pandemic, but I also appreciate that you actually have a directory as well on the website. I'm actually very interested because the festival was curated with the online space in mind. Again, it didn't feel like a transposition of what a live screening might be like. This is very much like dedicated to the online space. Do you ever envision this festival happening in person?
For the Body and Lens Festival, for me, it was a one-time collaboration, and of course, there we've been some differences with the people who were actually, who were organizing the festival. I want to be able to still work more as a curator. So I've been doing that. So I feel like I need more of that. Very recently, Birmingham Dance Film Festival, um, uh, I was able to curate a set of films for from the India part of things. And now I'm working with this Mundus Dance Film Festival, which is the master's program that I had done. And it's also a very international committee, where people from different parts of the world, like literally a committee members are from, like, I think 10 to 12 time zones, if you can almost
Oh my
imagine.
goodness. I can't
So,
imagine scheduling that.
oh my God, yeah. So I think that process now, I think I feel a little confident now, because this Corrimundus upcoming festival would be in August in France. And if I'm able to do something like this, then I think I would be now initiating Duet with camera, like full-fledged stuff, in India. But yeah, for body and lens, if you ask, I'm sure the organizers are doing their own body and lens. But for me, it was a definitely one time involvement. It was a lot of work, but it was also a
Right.
great learning process, because I learned to make a website, for example. Like, that website is just like, I worked on it. Like, I was like, wow, I can make websites now. Like, it's just to get a sense of what are these stuff that are involved in curation.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps you're right when you said about the aspect of caring thing. I was looking for spaces that I really care for, and this was perhaps body and lens. The continuation of it was not about caring anymore, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I have
Right.
moved towards more of avenues where actually there is this aspect of caring, um,
Mm-hmm.
for the work as well as for the artists, for the people who are going to be involved in the festival. So
Actually, so where in France is that screening in August?
this is in Clermont-Ferrand, in France, and yeah, there is this. I think it's on the north of France. Yeah, that was one of our uh, so the University of Auvergne, that was one of our universities back in that Erasmus Mundus program. So this is our first ever, dance film festival, which we've gotten a grant from Erasmus Student Alumni Association to be able to be able to do this, in person, physically there, uh, on like physical event, which is my first time to do this. And it's a really caring space. It's because I'm working with another co-curator from Nigeria, for example. She's a current student in the master's program that I was doing. So it's almost like it's not just about, having people established in their fields, but, we're having this sort of a very I wouldn't say mentor mentee, but like there's this learning space where, we help each other out. There is this really caring happening. Like, there are times when both of us are actually sharing, not talking about curatorial stuff at all. We just talk about our dissertations, what we're doing, field work. I'm struggling in the field work, and I'd say that it's okay because, I was also there. So it's almost like this relationship is very fascinating. It's new because I've never done this before.
That's Yeah, that's beautiful. And again, that's such I mean, even like talking about like sort of like the internalized hierarchies with the camera, there can be that same thing with curation as well.
Exactly.
Especially, I mean, I've been doing festival curation for almost a decade now, and there are always external forces that determine what that curation is apart from the discussions within the group itself. And again, it can be so hard to break through that and to really have a genuine dialogue about what is the work showing, and why does it matter, and why are we drawn to it as well.
Yep, yep, you're right. The word that you used about internalized hierarchies uh, is so true. It's actually very true. And I think you get to it's a matter of time, and then you know that you can choose. Um, what is it that you really want, or need, for sure, in terms of So if there is caring and contemplation are like my mantra to like, okay, there is space for contemplation, there is space for caring, yes, that's my space, okay, let's go there. It's almost like that.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful, and I mean, this conversation has really sparked a lot for me as well, and definitely going to be mulling over quite a bit. And you already mentioned the event in France. What else are you working on? What other projects do you have going on right now?
Caregiving is a project, so that is always happening at home.
Absolutely.
But but outside world, I think this festival is taking one of it's taking time as well as the energy right now, which is exciting. Also, I think right now I'm working on a dance film project. There is another festival in India, Oro Apar, who have started a dance film festival called Manifest. And I was so happy to see that its dance film is really kicking up, and they are holding it in the south of India. It's called Oro Apar. They are going to have, I think, their screening like 29th of July, if I'm not wrong. So around 29th onwards, film screening is going to be there. And they had opened up an incubator program. So I was like, yeah, it was really nice. And I was like, hey, I am really looking for somewhere I can work on a dance film because yes, I'm done curation. I'm doing a lot of research, but I need to create now. So let's do that. So I've been working on one of those something around a dance film project because my PhD is also practice based, and it requires for me to create a creative component, which is going to be films, dance films, I'm guessing. And this is just a start. So this is what I'm doing as of now. I'm teaching also. So I started to teach, and hopefully in design and architecture schools to bring more of like this screen dance and architecture together. So that's what I've been.
Yeah, I'm very curious. I mean, I know the curriculum might be in progress, but how do you approach that, and how do you approach sort of bridging the fields?
For me, I think I have to listen to architecture first than to do anything else. Listen to my own form, yes, but more of architects, designers. So a lot of listening needs to start, and I've started that process of just talking to people, conversing like this. This is a conversation, right? It's just this aspect that it always sparks so much. It only informs the conversation, is the inquiry, and that informs the curriculum. So my approach is through conversations right now, and then only I'll be able to figure out, how do I bridge this screen dance architecture thing. So I can give you an example. I did a demo. I did a demo class in this university. It's called Anant National University. They're also like in India. They're a new design school. They're also growing. They've been looking for people who would bring different kinds of explorations, architecture and choreography, for example. And I've been interested in that because my doctoral studies is also like PhD in spatial arts. So it gives me an opportunity to reflect. So on this idea of spatiality in general. So there was this demo class, and I was like, they said you have 30 minutes. So I was looking at a lot of very few resources that actually exist to bring screen dance and architecture, like this aspect of how do you bring the elements of architecture and then relate it to dance, and then see how it can transform and give a new idea for them. So in this class, I worked just with this idea of memory. So when you asked me about, okay, what was your earliest memory of dance and film? Um, I asked them the same thing. What was your, and people have their different answers. I remember this, I remember that. And every one of them have been, there are three things always there. There is an event, for example, there is this encounter, with time and movement, and you have this event that you remember. There is subject, there is the body, right? because you remember, you carry it also as someone who remembers that trace of that memory, for example. um, and last but not the least, movement, I think, because that is what is defining the carrying of the memory of that event when it occurred to the time, and the body becomes important. So all these three things are what they study in architecture. There is an event, there is movement, and there is subject. The movement part of things gets a lot like um, almost like interspersed with the event part of things only. So I was saying that, okay, now we have these three things. Maybe then I move to an exercise that we do is that to be able to just relate with the same thing with, for example, lab notation. So they've been notating, they love drawing. So I drawing becomes, and I've been hearing this only from architects, that students of architecture and design would love drawing. So how can I make this activity such as um, a connection with event, movement, and body? Yeah. So it's almost like a game exercise that we did, and that exercise opened up a lot for them because they're like, okay, I now am aware spatially. It's There is this embodied and spatial awareness that you bring, because that was not happening. It was mostly like you draw away from your body, right? And you make something, you record, you map something away from your body. You're not a part of that. So if it's a door, if it's a knob, what would happen if you were to embody that knob, if you were to embody that door and work with different choreographies? So starting to think in that way opened up some aspects of space, yes, but also like some choreographers that have been working with space, like Willie Donner, that bodies in urban spaces. You've seen that multiple bodies. Oh, I love it. Uh, and they were like, oh my God, what? For some of them were like, what is happening? And they're like, the space has now changed for me because, hey, they're just like lying in this bunch of stairs, and now the way they are sitting, the way they are positioned and aligned in the space, now they're feeling like, okay, this has completely changed the way I see a space and the way they're activating it. So those kind of entry points, and it's very initial, I know, but it's a good start, I guess. And I mean, I'm starting. Let's see. And screen dance has all these elements.
Definitely, definitely. Just boiling it down to those three things, and even just I know. I mean, I'm just saying this because I know I'm going to do this. Just using those almost as just like a starting point or a reflecting point for whatever process that you're working through. I can see like there's a huge value in that.
Yep. I hope I just said that correctly, because I was like so confident about event subject, and then what was that other thing? um,
Yeah.
oh my God, it was
Yeah.
quite scary.
Well, I mean, I think it also speaks to just like how easy it is to meld them too. How they can like how easy it can be to how those two elements can have very frequent intersections as well.
Yeah, now so I think I just need to repeat that because I'm able to recall it now. It's event, type, because this was also something that I read somewhere around with by a professor in Turkey called Professor Zehra Esroy. She wrote this very interesting. It's available online. I think it's an article, building dance and understanding the importance of dance in architectural design pedagogy. Huh. And she talks about this thing of, okay, architecture is about this, event, experience. That's the word. Oh, experience, embodiment. Basically, experience and embodiment come together. Event is time and movement, and lastly, subject is the body, for example. And this is exactly, if we draw a parallel, it's dance, it's screen dance, it's particularly screen dance. If I want to talk about all of that, and how do we bring that, so it's sort of almost like getting deeper into those three keywords, and it's actually available online also. This I was very fascinated because she also talks about the same thing, that this is a very niche subject of bringing spatiality, and how dance can be of value in a design and architectural pedagogy setting. It's very niche, like it's niche under, it's meta niche,
Yeah. That's a meta niche. That's the title of this episode.
Meta niche.
I am actually writing that down. That might actually be the title of this episode.
Okay then. Okay then. Let's do this. Yeah, she did a case study also. She also almost like opens up a conversation of like how do we do these exercises with them. And of course, when you think about, like I also remember a conversation with Douglas Rosenberg. He was actually saying, when I told him about, okay, I'm doing this PhD in spatial arts, and then he was like, what are you looking at and stuff. And uh, he was very he actually told that, screen dance and architecture, like even though he begins the Oxford Book of Screen Dance through these references to Oscar Schlemmer, and stuff. So he was saying that there's so less references for bringing these, or just theorization, or research done with this aspect of screen dance and space, and mostly architecture and design, and how that can be very interesting way to have a different way of looking at space altogether. So it's a work in progress. I need to work on the curriculum.
So we're coming up just at the end of our conversation, and again, your practice spans so many different areas of screen dance, and in particular, I'm very interested in how you envision the community element evolving over the next few years. Now that we're mostly out of the pandemic, but how do you envision the Duet with Camera community evolving, and what's sort of an idealized way, for lack of a better word, of how it could evolve?
I think primarily in the space of Duet with Camera, because it has had these three verticals of practice, pedagogy, and performance. These three are the parallel elements that should continuously evolve in its own space. But Duet with Camera, for sure, it through its promotion, distribution, education of and creation of screen dance, continues to at least set up that foundation for continuing a dance form, or basically a shared practice of any kind of movement form. The way I'm at least looking at it, I'm sure hopefully soon, would be to be able to, I wouldn't say an organization, but it's almost like an official registration of it, where we have international and national partners becoming part of this collective. And I think the collective is the better word for me than saying company or something like that. But I think I see envision that, where performance and technology is at the center. And since I'm now playing with motion capture technology a lot through a grant that I recently received, and it's a new thing, it's a new space, but I think it's about that aspect of how technology can be not super separate, but how can the idea of care, how do we use technology with care, can continue through the community building exercise. Yes, continuing the Instagram space, but also now things have opened up somewhere, somewhat. I'm a part of this collective in Delhi where I'm situated right now, called Khuli Khirki, or Khuli Khirki translates to open windows, which we are sort of co-renting and co-managing since the pandemic began. And we're almost like, now we're almost, yeah, around 40 to 40s practitioners from Delhi, from basically performing artists, or people who have been in any way associated with performance, who are co-managing and co-renting the space, but also using the space for different internal grants that we're having. So it's almost like it's not an organization, but we are, whatever excess that we produce from this renting space, we actually use it for an internal grant system. So there is a community for sure that would be open. So I am going to take some community classes, for examples, with Screendance. It's a slow process. It's going to be a lot slow, but there are multiple ways of continuing that interest with Screendance. And I think that performance pedagogy and practice continuously needs to evolve. But yeah, hopefully, like now that I know Frameform, I would be so happy to have and maybe Duet with camera coming together to do a collaborative podcast with people from filmmakers from India to do like a series where
Yeah.
it's just who have been working with,
Oh, that'd be
So
incredible.
I'm just like, Hannah, that would be so cool, right? I mean,
I'm in.
that's the
I'm
beauty
in.
of. Yay! Whoa, that became that was nice. That was so. I mean, this is the thing. Like, I think I'm really not worried about where it will go and where it will. I mean, it will continue to grow through multiple approaches, but it always helps to have a team. With my current working with this Coromandus Dance Film Festival, this I'm having like if we're doing this all virtually in 10 time zones, and the team is fantastic, the team spirit is amazing, the teamwork is amazing. So I know the kind of people I want to work with, the kind of spirit that I need during this process. And if all I needed is perhaps just reaching out to people, this was a reaching out again.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I'm sure it will become something, a part of like people who are involved with Duet with camera in some way or the other. I hope so.
Yeah. Oh, I'd be so
Yeah.
I'd be so down for that. And yeah, to be continued. This was awesome. Thank you. I mean, thank you so much, Sumedha. I so appreciate this, and I hope everyone listening is as inspired as I am right now.
I am having so much to take away today, that things that, when you speak out, when you converse, it just sort of reenacts in your thoughts. And now I'm looking at some of the things again. It's almost very, very, I think it's a gift in a way, because we don't realize how much. I mean, I'm really grateful that this happened.
We'd love to hear from you. Send us an email at frameformpodcast@gmail.com and engage with us on social at frameformpod. That's frameformpod. Don't keep a good thing like this a secret. Invite your friends to subscribe and join the conversation. If you like what you're hearing, leave us a review and rate the show. Thanks for listening.